In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 71 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Portland in Oregon talking with Kelsey Peake. Kelsey is the co-founder of Squirm, an adult sex education platform committed to promoting healthy sexual communication. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoy.
Kelsey, welcome to the Swell Pod and the Kiln Road Trip that we're on. Thanks for being one of the 100.
I'm the 100?
No,
one of the 100.
Oh, got it.
One of the most important of the 100.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is a great thing you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you. If you can, just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, my name is Kelsey Peake. I kind of have like a double professional life.
Mm-hmm.
I work as a meeting and events planner for like clients, corporate clients, a lot of financial services. And then a friend of mine and I have a side business called Squirm, which is an adult sex ed platform all about healthy sexual communication, which is far more fun to talk about.
Yeah. That's interesting. And kind of so help me understand, so the evolution of those two things. So you started as just how did you get to that spot where you're doing now both of those?
Sure. My like core passion at my heart is producing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've always done like theater and film projects. And so from the event planning side, that was just like a very natural progression in my kind of career path, was to start to translate some of those hobbies of producing into really organizing events and doing the marketing piece and just kind of synthesizing everything. So I was actually at the time living in Mexico and teamed up with that company and have been working with them for a while now, which has been great.
Yeah.
And then the Squirm side, Tess is my business partner, and she and I just always loved talking about dating and sex and relationships, and wanted a pandemic project. So when we were all locked down, just like built a social media and started writing blogs and started to kind of put out these little projects. And so that's been another avenue for production, which is just like a subject matter I'm a little bit more passionate about.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I love the name.
Thank you.
Is incredible.
Yeah.
So a pandemic project. I'm wondering, so did you just start, I mean, was it kind of a really conscious thing, and you're like, we're going to talk about this, we're going to start putting some blogs out, and how was it received initially? Tell me about the early days of that.
Definitely. So yes, it was definitely a conscious thing. Really focusing on communication. Like we never were taught in our sex ed programs to kind of like how to talk about this stuff with partners or with friends. It's a very taboo subject matter. So that was what we really wanted to focus, is like, how can we improve everyone's comfort level with discussing the subject? So we started with an audio project called Oral Hygiene, which is like a 10-day communication course that you listen to while you brush your teeth. So it's like based on the concept of habit stacking, where you take 5 minutes, you're already going to brush your teeth, and it's just little bite-sized lessons of how you can get more comfy. And then, it was kind of just like project to project from there. So we made a conversation deck, and then we're now working on our own podcast. This is an inspiring setup for me to witness.
That's cool. So when do you think the podcast is going to kick off?
We're targeting a mid-February launch. It's a mini series. So it's like produced, and it's not going to be an always on at this point. So we're getting everything together and going to release it mid-Feb.
Audio and video and...
A little bit of video.
Okay.
I hear that's the way to go now. But because it's a combination of us talking and then also interviewing guests. So it was a little hard to get the video. We didn't produce it with like video in mind initially. So we'll have clips, but not the full episodes.
Yeah. So was the impetus, you touched on it, and I just want to double check. So the impetus thinking about just the lack of education, but was there, I mean, if I can I ask, like, was there ever, like, were there instances in which it was like just the communication was truly just not there, and you're like, we gotta, like, how can we improve this? Or
yeah. I mean, I think for myself, I think you mean like, was there like a personal instance in my life that inspired it?
Yeah.
Or our lives? Yeah. I mean, I feel like I consider myself pretty lucky in this area. Like, I haven't had any really like dangerous situations or assaults but I think what we have probably all universally, or a lot of us have experienced, is just really uncomfortable encounters or like not very satisfying encounters, because it isn't really commonplace to be like, what are you into? What aren't you into? What are your boundaries? All that kind of stuff. So I feel like we both feel that the lack of communication kind of at best is just makes for unpleasant experiences, and at worst can be really dangerous. If there's miscommunications in that regard, then people can leave an encounter feeling like really violated and not safe. And so I think it's been something that when we've spoken with friends about, or other people since we've, followers since we've started Squirm, it just seems to be a very like across the board thing. And not even just in casual stuff. Like I remember we've talked to a friend who has been in a relationship for years, and they still like aren't able to really tap into what it is they want to try or do or experience. And because it's hard, it's really vulnerable to share, like, it's a lot less vulnerable to share what you don't like than it is to share what you do like. And when something's such a baseline level of like what your needs are and what feels good, I think that's especially vulnerable. So it's just trying to make a space for us to all fumble through this together.
Yeah. Like, I guess to be personal, right? Like, I've been I married my high school sweetheart, so met her when I was 16, and I'm 34 now, I think. So 34, right? And we've been together for a long time, and we're still, I think, trying to figure that stuff out. Yeah. It's a journey for sure.
And it changes, right? Like I'm guessing your sexual selves at like 19 is very different from how it is now.
That's a really great point.
So you can get these scripts down of like, well, I like this position, or I like to feel this way. But in 5 years, that might really change. So I think our approach is very much just like learning how to like start that conversation with yourself first, to really be checking in about what feels good to you. And it's not just like positions. It's like, how do you want to feel during sex, or like during flirting, or like what are these elements of desire that you want to tap into in general in your life? So starting that conversation with yourself, and then being able to continue to have that conversation with a partner.
Yeah.
And also like unlearning that getting feedback is a criticism, right? Like, feedback is a gift. It's not about you're doing this wrong or you're not whatever. It's just about learning how to kind of best make each other feel good.
And what's the reception been? So like, tell me about the community, like your community, the people who believe in what you're doing, who follow along. Tell me what the reception's been like. Sure.
I mean, it's been really positive. I think it's been so sweet to get messages from people and really affirming. I would say, especially with our conversation deck, Nookie, it's 90 prompts about sex and intimacy. And it's designed to be played with friends or people you're dating or married to or whatever. So it's just like fun questions about the stuff. And we've gotten so much good feedback about just how many conversations had started. I've played it. Some of my favorite times that I've played it have been with friends, and just like opening up that conversation with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's really what keeps us going and continuing to do this stuff, because there's a need for it.
As a physical card deck?
Yeah, I'll give you guys one. I have one here.
Really? That's cool. Totally. That's amazing. Thank you.
Of course.
We received another card deck.
One was...
That was about strategies. This one might be...
It's a little different.
This one's a different kind of strategy.
But actually, you said
that's so interesting.
You say that, and it's an interesting one. I mean, certainly not something I talk about, certainly publicly, this subject. One, because that's just not how any example in my own growing up, that was given to me.
Yeah.
But I think it is about first principles. This can really be applied to anything. The essence of it is that I don't know. It's not going to make sense what I'm going to say now. If someone is comfortable giving feedback on any subject that's important, right? It could be food in a restaurant. It could be someone's bad breath. It could be any topic. Like, are they comfortable in sharing the uncomfortable or what feels like an uncomfortable? And actually, what's most important is this. There are things more important, right? Restaurant is not as important as this topic, for example. In relationships,
so intimate.
So what's most important is to get it right. Are we listening? Are we observing? Are we, I don't know what my question is really.
No, I 100% agree with you. It's something that we talk about, especially in the beginning, we talked about a lot, where it's like, it's just getting comfortable identifying what you want and being able to verbalize that. And like, it's a big reason why we called it Squirm is because it is that uncomfortable feeling. Like, Squirm can be hot, right? It can be like, but it also can be like, yikes, so squirmy. You feel like all twisted up and kind of knotted. And so it's really about learning to like lean into that feeling of discomfort, because it is scary to say what you want. It is scary to say to the waitress, actually, I ordered like pork belly, not steak or whatever, like, it can, depending on how you were socialized and grew up, and I think especially for a lot of women, it can feel hard to like say what you want or need in a situation, any situation. So I like that this is a way to kind of engage with that practice, and it does translate to all sorts of things.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned that you had that 5-minute audio thing, right? And then you have a deck. Do you have any other products, experiences, services, or anything like that?
Yeah. So we have, I think this is like my favorite thing that we've ever made. Maybe the podcast will usurp it because it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we have a workshop called So What Are You Into? We offer it virtually, and we'll do it in person in like early 2024 in Portland. And it's just all about breaking down that question of what are you into? So we kind of frame it like a Build-A-Bear workshop, which is
okay, piece by piece, you get your thing, and you fill it with
like what kind of stuffing do you want? What kind of outfit?
Yeah.
But yeah, so just kind of breaking down the different components of what might be able to frame an answer to that question, and like we were saying earlier, how to continue to evolve it. So it's not like you walk away with like, this is my definitive list of what I like, but being able to kind of give a line of questioning to yourself. It's like an hour and a half, and that it's my favorite thing that we do. I love it. I think that people always get so much out of it, and I love it. We've done other ones on porn. So Tess, my business partner, has studied porn. Like, she got her master's in doing kind of adult media and how that impacts how we learn about sex. So we do a porn literacy workshop, and our podcast is all about porn too. That's coming out. The good and the bad of it, kind of just like breaking it down. And then, otherwise it's a lot of events is kind of on the horizon for 24. So like mixers, we'll have a happy hour here that's just more generally questions about intimacy and trust and relationships and communication. And that's cool. Kind of the offerings right now.
So the events is now mixing into this venture. That's just really cool.
Yeah.
She's like habit stacking, but actually passion stacking.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I like that.
I love that.
I might have to. Yeah, that's a cool term.
I've heard a couple of cool ones today now. One from the previous guest as well. We'll have to talk about. But no, I think we do want to ask you about Kiln. But before we get there, I do want to just see, like, are there any interesting things, I guess, lessons that you've learned through this so far? Any unexpected lessons? Yeah.
Well, I think it's been like personally the most amazing accountability system as I date. I've learned how hard it is to really like walk the walk sometimes. And really not just with sex, just with all things, like learning how to really speak up for yourself. And I think just how it's funny. I feel like it's an area that's really universal, and that it's something that a lot of people struggle with, but it hasn't really landed until doing this a lot and talking to so many people, how different everyone is coming to this topic. Like everyone has such different religious backgrounds, really different family cultures, really different school systems, really different relationships. Like we all have such a unique kind of tapestry of the things that inform the way we talk about relationships and dating and sex. And it's really opened my eyes to how I think for me, it's been easy to kind of walk around and assume everyone's kind of coming from like a similar baseline as I am. And that's just really not true. Like everyone has such a different framework in every area of their life. So I think it's really allowed me to celebrate the kind of mental diversity in the world.
That's amazing. I really like that. So thinking about Kiln, so you work out of Kiln?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is it like to be at Kiln? What's the role that Kiln has provided in terms of you building your business? I know this is a relatively new location here, right? But yeah, help me understand that a little bit.
I mean, I love it. I posted an Instagram story yesterday. Like, I'm sorry that Kiln has become my personality because I really cannot shut up about how great it's been. This is not paid, I just really just love it. I feel like co-working in general it's been for the past couple of years something that I've really gotten into, because working out of my house, it just feels draining. And I think working in an office, it's great because you have the social interaction, but it's also, I think, easier to get annoyed with people that you're directly working with while working next to them. Yeah. And here you get all the social elements, but you're not like waiting on Danny to finish his report, So it's like there's not that kind of, we don't really like owe each other anything, but we just get to be a support in a community. And I think that's a really, really special thing. And they just spoil us so much. We have so many happy hours and so many like running clubs and just the Slack and the ping pong table. Like, I just feel really well taken care of and love it.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the Kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at kiln.com and answer SWELL in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention SWELL in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Campervans, a luxury campervan rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra Campervans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Moterra offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomoterra.com/swell. That's gomoterra.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus Station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
also ensure energy security with backup power during outages,
reduce carbon emissions with renewables,
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables.
and enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your Taurus station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at taurus.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You want to ask the last question?
Yeah. So, what do you think it takes, in your experience, in what you've been doing, to create something that didn't exist before?
It's a really interesting question.
You can have a long think about it.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Silence is okay.
Okay. Something that did not exist before. I mean, I think that there's, I'm trying to think of the anecdote or where it was from. There's like this Elizabeth Gilbert book where she's talking about how she was writing a book and her author friend, do you guys know this? Have you ever read anything about her?
Yeah.
I think it was Big Magic.
Big Magic, yeah.
Yeah. She's talking about how she was like writing this book and her friend was like, I like wrote that book like 3 years ago. And there was like all these crazy similarities. So I do really believe in kind of like collective consciousness where it's like the ideas emerge and someone's just going to grab it. Right. But I think that what's differentiating in a field where there's so much content being produced, especially now with the internet and it's all kind of like open source, is being able to really lean in with your personality, your experiences, your style, your taste, to put your own stamp on it. A lot of the stuff out there is going to be purporting the same ideas. A lot of people are going to be talking about dating. A lot of people are going to be talking about inspiration on a podcast. A lot of people are going to be making a co-working space. The thing that's really differentiating is just throwing your authentic self into it, trusting your taste, and like amusing yourself in the process. Because if it amuses you, it'll probably amuse someone else.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in 2 ways. 1, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.